today I'm going to show you guys how to glaze your cylinders, but I'm going to show you how to only use our dip glazes, but in a variety of different ways. Okay, so typically people just dip glaze their pots. It's one color. They're beautiful, just one color. Don't get me wrong. That's how I often do it. But there's ways that you can kind of trick the system so you get more variety and you can kind of play around with just using dip glazes. So the first one I will do is, I'm gonna do inside out. So I'm gonna do the inside one color and the outside another color. Now here is what I want you to pay attention to all of these examples is, except for one example, there's only one layer of glaze on the entire pot, no matter how many different glazes I use. So I'm never double dipping anything. Okay, so the really basic steps are up here. Rinse your pot quickly, get a sponge and a cup, mix your glaze, go on from there. So first we're gonna rinse this really quickly. So quick. That's the first thing you're gonna do, just in case there's dust on it or any maybe clay. You want to make sure that your hands are clean and the pot is clean. Don't have lotion on your hands. If you're throwing, don't have clay on your hands. Don't pick your bisque stuff up off the cart and put it by your wheel where it can get splashed with clay. Clay, when it's bisque, has like pores, just kind of like our faces, and we don't want to clog those pores because it might look fine when we dip it in, but once it gets fired, it can mess up the glaze. Now, with this technique, I want to wax resist the bottom. I want to make it very clear that you don't always have to wax resist the bottom. You're like, what is wax resist? We don't even know what that is. Wax resist is liquid wax, and you can find it here, wax resist. There's also a QR code there where you can learn a whole bunch of different techniques about wax resisting. So that's kind of fun. You're gonna get your banding wheel, make sure that you hold it from the bottom. And we're gonna tip this over and just go ahead and use the circles on the banding wheel to make sure that it's pretty centered. I'm gonna grab a flat brush, and what I wanna do is I wanna wax the bottom of this pot. For this technique, for all techniques, we don't want any glaze on the bottom, but for this technique, we're gonna dip the bottom into glaze, so we don't want the glaze to stick to the bottom. So I'm just, right down here is how you turn this. I'm gonna just put one thin layer of wax. So not only am I putting it on the bottom, but I'm also gonna go around the edge. You don't want this to drip. If you get, and you wanna make this line as clean and crisp as you can. If your line is all jankety, your pot's gonna look jankety when it's done. So be mindful of that. If you by chance would accidentally drip some on here and you don't want it to stay on there, like here or whatever, you would have to put it back through the bisque to fire it away and then redo it. So if you drip some here, you can't wipe it off. It's already soaked into those pores. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna resist the glaze in that area. So when you're done with the resist, immediately rinse your brush out, preferably using warm water, kind of massage it through your fingers. If we keep that resist in there, it's gonna get hard and mess up our brushes. Okay, so I'm gonna pick two colors. You wanna make sure the drill is clean. Just gonna make sure that's clean. Now, the reason we wanna make sure everything is clean, that we're dipping into these buckets, is because imagine if each one of you, there's 90 of you throughout the day, had a little bit of glaze on here and dipped it in different glazes. What would happen by the end of the day, or the end of the month, or the end of the semester? Anybody want to take a guess? Yeah.
It would be entirely different color.
Yeah, it would be a totally different color. We call that, it would be contaminated, right? So we want to make sure that we're always putting clean things in our glazes. So when you're mixing up your glaze, you don't have to necessarily go full trigger, but you want to go fast. And you want to mix kind of all the way around. Don't just keep it in one spot. You're gonna bring it up a little bit down a little bit. Mixing your glaze is super important. If you don't mix it a lot, it's gonna come out different than how it should, okay? So I'm gonna mix this. When you're done mixing, you just kind of want to tap it here to get the extra off, and then you're gonna put it in this water and just twist it around a bit to get it clean. If there's any extra on, you can use your brush or microfiber cloth to get it on. And then I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna mix this one. So now that we have both glazes mixed, we're gonna come over here and get a cup for glazing. Make sure it's clean. Okay, so on your buckets are your test tiles. We have our B-Mix, and then we have our Kansas Wheat. So you can see the difference in the clay and the glazes, how they react differently. I'm gonna double check to make sure this wax is dry. You don't need to put the wax on really thick, which is good because then it dries pretty quickly, okay? If you're in a big rush, you could also put it in front of the pan, okay? First up, we're gonna do the inside. You always do the inside first. And then I want to have my lid close to me. This is the part that's tricky. And when you guys first go to do this, call me over and I can kind of be here for moral support, okay? Because we are going to put glaze in and we're gonna roll it out. Yep. And so when you roll it out, it's like opening a handle or a knob on a door. See my thumbs all the way to the side, and I'm gonna roll it out like so. It takes a little practice. So I'm gonna put my glaze in here. I'm gonna switch it to my dominant hand. I can lay this in this hand, but see how my thumb's all the way over here? I'm gonna pour and I'm gonna open up that door. And the goal is to be able to open up the door so you get the whole inside coated at the same time. It looks easy, right? It's not. It is once you learn and you practice, it will be easy, but it just takes a little bit to get your brain wrapped around that. So then it's good to kind of twist it and get any drips off. You don't ever want to lift your pot up right now because you don't want the drips to drip down into the pot. You want them to drip off into your bucket, okay? Because if the drips are dripping down into the pot, that's making it too thick because that's extra layers that you're putting on your pot. Okay, so we're gonna let that inside dry. And while the inside dries, I'm gonna go clean up this before we do the second part because that needs to dry. I'm in different clothes because we forgot to, or we didn't film this one little part of this technique. So the inside out technique, I've already glazed the inside and I want to show you how to glaze the outside. Wax resist on the bottom. What we're going to do is we're going to put our hand, this is dry, hand inside. All right, so we're going to have our hand securely in here. If your pot was too big for this, you can also hold a pot like this, okay? So, but this one's small enough that I can just spread my fingers out like this. I'm going to go down. As I'm going down, I'm looking on both this side and this side to make sure that I'm going all the way to the rim. You can see I missed a smidge right there. I think that should be okay. You don't want to keep it down there too long. If you keep it in the glaze too long, it's going to absorb too much glaze, and then that would be similar to double dipping. Okay, I also wanted to mention that the two glazes that I used on the inside out technique, on the outside is the creamy matte, and on the inside is the sorcerer's stone. So once this gets a little drier, I can take a sponge and wipe that off. So when this one comes out, it'll have one color on the inside, one color on the outside, but there's only one layer over the whole thing. There's no double dipping, okay?